Good to be with you, Bishop Strickland. Want to thank you very much for coming out with us yesterday and joining us to pray a little bit of the rosary, to give us some remarks at the rally for Personhood, which is where the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion concluded outside of the hotel here. I want to ask you, what drew you to come join us yesterday? And what do you think we can do to help more bishops to come and join us in our efforts going forward?
Well, Jim, as I tell people when it's about the sanctity of life, I just pretty much say yes if I possibly can, because I really believe it is a fundamental and foundational issue for humanity, for this nation, really for the world at this point. And we don't seem to be making the greatest progress, but we have to trust in the Lord and just continue to proclaim the sanctity of life. And as far as the other bishops, I know that, the schedules here are exhausting, and I can understand why they're caught up in many things. But I just encourage you, persevere and keep asking, inviting, and maybe looking for the ways to get through some of the logistics of the schedule.
All right, thank you for that. Archbishop Laurie was just speaking about radical solidarity with mothers and their preborn children. I heard him speak a lot about the solidarity with the mothers, which is great, but not a lot about the solidarity with the children, with the preborn children. What does it mean to you to be in radical solidarity with our little brothers and sisters who are being dehumanized and murdered by the thousands every day?
Well, I think we really have to focus on that, because it's just so patently clear to me, and I think it is to all of us, but it's not acknowledged in our society. They are the weakest, the most vulnerable, and they're literally being ripped limb from limb, even as we speak. And people promoting that with vehemence is just something we've got to speak for, the voices that are literally ripped away from them. They have lungs, they have voices, and they're torn apart before they can learn to speak a word. So we have a real obligation to them. I certainly share the need to be in solidarity with the mothers and the fathers. I think that needs to be emphasized, because men are left out of the picture, but that child isn't conceived without a man involved. And I think they need to be, sometimes they're hurting, sometimes they're just callous and ignoring this situation, but it's their child that's being ripped apart as well. So it's the man, the woman, and the child.
Yeah, thank you. As far as proclaiming the moral truth and the reality of what's going on and what ought to be done, especially when we start to think about public policy, the U.S. Constitution says that all people have a right to life. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says that all preborn children are people. Shouldn't we all be calling for government leaders to affirm the constitutional personhood of the preborn?
Absolutely. And I think we've got to keep working in that direction. The leadership of this administration, from the president down, is ignoring all of that and really vehemently working for the right to murder others. That's what it comes down to. And I find it frustrating, I know a lot of people do, that we're facing so much violence, we're so much lack of respect for humanity, from the whole spectrum, conception to natural death, or the end of life. There are more and more threats of euthanasia, assisted suicide, and really encouraging people, if you're in pain, just kill yourself. And that is a denial of the sanctity of life at the other end of the spectrum. I think we just have to continue to be joyful and strong and know that life is the most precious gift that God gives us. Human life is created in the image and likeness of God. So we just have to continue to advocate for life and use the best skills that we have to do a better job, and to speak to leaders that call themselves Catholic, and they're part of the slaughter. and they're promoting the slaughter. I think we have to be very conscious of how devastating that really is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I heard also Archbishop Lori speaking about making abortion unthinkable. I use that terminology as well, but I always say that's the ultimate goal, and I think of it in terms of ending abortion as to make it illegal and unthinkable. It seems like that's the trajectory, at least that's what it was with slavery. It became illegal, and then now it's unthinkable, of course. But I didn't hear him speak the word illegal. Isn't that the public policy position, again, that we ought to have, that we ought to be hearing from our U.S. bishops, that this ought to be illegal? Abortion ought to be illegal, a full ban, no exceptions.
Well, I fully agree. I think that ultimately it's about changing hearts to the truth. But murder's illegal. Abortion is murder. And it's murder of the most innocent, the most defenseless in society. There are many ways that defenseless people are being harmed in the world today and in our nation. But the child in the womb is the most defenseless. It is murder, and it needs to be illegal. It needs to be incorporated into the illegality of taking anyone's life.
Yeah, and finally, also in his remarks, Archbishop Lori was speaking about, quote, angry demonstrators with narrow partisan interests, end of quote. He didn't specify what he meant by it, but wouldn't radical solidarity with mothers and their preborn children make one appear to have narrow partisan interests in this time that we're in, when we've got one party, the Democrat Party, that is full on pushing this daily mass murder, government funded, government protected, government sanctioned? I mean, I think of the words of Archbishop Chaput a few years back when he said that this is the sacrament most holy of the Democrat Party. So if we are really going to stand in radical solidarity with the mothers and their preborn children, you know, we may be labeled as angry demonstrators with narrow partisan interests if we're just proclaiming the truth and the moral, the foundational moral truth of this in this time that we're in. We have to do it anyway, though, don't we?
Well, I think so. I just pointed to, Republican, Democrat, but if you look at their platforms and what they're pushing, the Democrats are not, they're unabashedly pro-death with abortion and demanding the right up until birth, some already pushing beyond birth, murder the child. I mean, that's their battle cry. And we have to speak against that. We have to counteract that. And our political system, I think, is very broken at this point, because we really don't have strong clarity from any side. There's too much corruption, too much money driven. I mean, there are just so many issues. But clearly, when it comes to the life issues, there's only one way to go. There's not even any possible option, which is very unfair to the people of God in this nation. It should be a two-party system, and we don't have any strong clarity of really being on basic respect for life and human rights, and then choosing, okay, what sort of economic solutions, what sort of more business solutions? Sure, you're going to have differences of opinion, but we don't even have a foundation for it right now.
Yes, yeah. If I can just sneak one last one in, I just want to ask you about the program Walking with Moms in Need. Absolutely, we need to be walking with pregnant moms in need. They're being lied to, they're being deceived, they're being coerced, quite frankly, by all of these lies. And in doing a lot of work on the sidewalks outside of abortion centers and making friends with many of the moms and dads, and then even seeing miraculous turnarounds and being there to throw baby showers for them. This is all real. This is all an opportunity for us in these places of death. We have an opportunity to bring the hands and feet of Christ. I believe the church ought to be present there with at least 2 people every single hour they're open, for the workers as well, reaching out to them in love and trying to share the witness of Christ with them, that they're not irredeemable redeemable as well. We're there for them also. And so in terms of this walking with moms in need, one thing I've not seen with this program is an encouragement for people to go and get active in sidewalk ministry outside of these abortion centers. It seems to me if we're going to encounter these moms in need, we have to go to where they are, and that's one place where we know we can meet them at a very important moment and try to draw them to authentic love, that they are loved, that their child is loved, and to try to walk with them at that point. Why, I guess, do you notice any reluctance on the bishop's part? Because there seems to be something here where they don't really fully encourage, or I guess they don't publicly state any sort of encouragement to getting out there on the sidewalk and being the hands and feet of Christ. I know there's some dioceses that support 40 Days for Life and things like that, but I guess, do you notice that with the bishops as a body, that they don't want to encourage people to be on the sidewalk outside the abortion centers?
Well, I really haven't noticed that myself, but I would just emphasize that the accompaniment we talk about, it needs to be there for, I guess the perspective I encourage, Jim, that I think we forget so easily, is try to remember God's perspective. Every one of us is his precious child. And when a woman is in that vulnerable place, as you're saying, we need to be there to offer support, especially when they're threatened with a critical decision where they're hearing so many voices say, oh, it's your right to your right over your body and all of these things. We need to be there to support them. And I think just in so many ways, we're not as strong as we should be and as clear and as unified in saying every life in this picture is sacred. The woman, the man that impregnated the woman, and the child. And I think that we've just got to do a lot better job of emphasizing the precious gift that each of those people are. And when the child is definitely in a vulnerable position, when they're being threatened with possibly having their life taken, the woman is in a vulnerable position that because she's facing this decision and she's being told by so many voices in society, there are no options. Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to assist you. And I've seen a lot of growth in that in my time before when I was in the seminary. More and more pregnancy assistance and all sorts of organizations, both faith-based and not faith-based, or various religions that are reaching out to women and saying, we are there to support and to help you. And I think we've got to be there from really maybe a final way to say it, Jim, is from conception to natural death. As soon as we know a woman is dealing with an unplanned pregnancy, an unplanned conception, we need to try to be there in whatever ways we can. And being at these Planned Parenthood sites where they're really promoting abortion, to be there and to say there are alternatives. We're there to help you. That's what the body of Christ needs to be doing as the church.
All right, thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your time and for all your good efforts and good work. We'll be praying for you.
Thanks, Jim.